Another week and another batch of characters that you can summon for over here on the JP side of the game, as we are on the road to our Grand Servant program, if we want to call it that. If you're not in the know and you're playing on the NA side of things, basically at the end of the year, you could take one character that you have grailed, fully skilled up, and I believe they also have to be Bond 10 up to the Grand status, of which all we know is that they can also use their Bond CE in conjunction with a normal CE. I'm assuming they're also going to get like some kind of damage bonus, because like half the things in this game give you damage bonuses. Like you got foes, NP levels, CE levels, all this stuff. So what they're doing over here on the JP side of things is so that you can make any servant possible your Grand Servant, they're putting everybody on rate up, and Archer is the next class that's underway for this whole rotational banner thing. And it looks like they're going to be splitting it into week 1 and week 2 because there's just so many archers in this game. And so what I'm going to be doing is cataloging which servants are on rate up, what banners I think are worth going for, so that way if you're on JP, you know if this servant is still good, maybe they have a buff you don't know about that makes them a lot better, or if you're on the NA side of things, you can kind of plan this out with, you know, your 2 years worth of clairvoyance. Now, it will be really ironic for me to say this, but I don't really think this first batch of Archer banners is the most broken, which is really ironic because Gilgamesh is my favorite Fate character, and he is quite good. If this is a character that you are wanting to get, even if you're still playing JP to this day, not a bad character to pick up, because they just keep giving this guy buffs. I mean, when back in the day, it's like, oh, well, it's all about battery farming. Here, let's give Gilgamesh a 30% battery. Oh, his NP doesn't hit very hard. Here's an NP damage buff and an NP upgrade. All right, well, now we're in the Oberon meta, and he's kind of falling off a little bit. Boom, let's just give him an NP damage buff for all Sky attributed allies, including himself. So they will continue to make sure that Gilgamesh is good. He's functionally the poster child for the Fate series at this point. I would argue he's kind of stolen it for Artoria. I believe at this point, he's in more Fate properties than Artoria is, with stuff like Strange Fate coming out, with the Extella games coming out, with the extra games, especially like CCC, him having a main route over there. You know, I think he's probably the poster child, but not a bad character to summon for. You also have decent 4-stars over here on rate up as well, which I do think is something to consider, because keep in mind, every single archer will be coming back. So if you're on the look for somebody like, I don't know, Zenobia, or probably more importantly, UDK Bardist, you know, you want to keep your eyes out on that. And Emiya and Atalanta over there are not the worst 4-stars to get. It's just, it kind of feels like Emiya is one of those characters that is really broken on paper, but unless you really like Emiya or you're going out of your way to use him, you're probably not going to get that much mileage out of them. Atalanta, kind of the same thing. Decent quick looper, but you probably have somebody better, but could be a decent pickup if you don't have anybody better. So not the worst banner over here. I think this is a strong open, but then you look at banner 2 over here and it's like, oh, gee, is it 2016? Do we still need to take out Gawain and Camelot? You know, you can bring a friend, you know, you could bring her as a friend. You don't have to summon for her yourself. You can use the character right here, who is arguably better than Artemis, as a 3-star that you can get on any single banner. It's really unfortunate. I don't know if this is just a bit or a meme that somebody thought would be really funny over at Lasengal HQ, being like, what if we put the 5-star and the better 3-star version on the same banner? So I really can't see any reason for you to go on this banner unless you specifically just really like Orion, quote unquote, but there will be a better Super Orion banner. You know, the better real Orion will go on rate up, and he's much more worth going for than this banner over here. Tesla's kind of in a weird position. I know he's not the most popular character because, you know, he doesn't really do much in stories. It's like, oh, he popped in at the very end of London to be like, I'm the villain, I'm gonna blow up England, you know, and he popped up in America and was like, I'm back just to make fun of Edison, and then kind of pops in every now and then in like some of the Lost Belt chapters and whatnot. But he is legitimately really good. I mean, he's very, very strong. He has really good NP gain, buffs the party, has guts for challenge quests, has the big battery, good power mods, and his NP can like AoE stun all the enemies. It's just a lot of really good things that he's rocking on his kit. But you know, I can definitely understand people saying, well, I mean, Tesla might be good and all, sure, but I have Archetype Earth, or Tesla might be good, but I have Kukulkan, or I have Tiamat. You know, I have X Servant over here, who's just more of a generalist AoE buster servant. So even though he is good, probably not worth going for, which is unfortunately kind of the meta that we're in. I mean, even if you have somebody like, say, Space Ishtar, you're probably just going to be fine because you're like, well, my Space Ishtar can flex as my AoE Buster Servant. And if I've got her like NP2, it's probably still enough to get the job done, but not a bad servant to summon for. He's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. I just really don't see anybody going out of their way to summon for him strictly for a meta reason, quote unquote, because you probably have a better servant sitting in the wings in your Chaldea, so it's not as, you know, crazy to roll on this banner, especially when Anne and Mary over here are the 4-star, and despite them maybe being more rare because, you know, they're an old summer servant, unless you're trying to collect every servant in the game, probably not worth rolling on this banner. And then I don't even know if I need to dignify this one. Arjuna might legitimately be one of the worst, if not the worst 5-star in the game. It's criminal how they do my boy like this, because you look at Karna gets the sloppy toppy from Lasengel. They give him everything. They fixed his battery, buffed his NP damage for Lord knows what reason, gave him a good power mod, they gave him a costume, and to be fair, they also gave Arjuna a costume over here, but look, they didn't give him no Super Karna costume. Arguably, the buff to Arjuna is Arjuna Alter. They just made a completely separate servant, and they were like, that's how we make Arjuna good. We just completely disassociate ourselves from the Arjuna Archer version, right? And I mean, it's not like there's bad things about this guy. I mean, he does have the battery. Technically, he's almost always immune to debuffs, but we're really reaching the bottom of the barrel with this one. And again, Emiya Alter's not exactly the pull for this banner. Like, I would have argued that you probably, if you were trying to get people to summon on this banner, you gotta throw somebody like UDK Bargus on here. But I will also say that I am glad that they didn't do that, because it just makes the banner very easy to skip on. Now, that's nothing against Emiya Alter. He is capable of doing some really good single target damage, but his kit really isn't the best. We're kind of beyond the fact of like, wow, this guy can do so crazy numbers, because nowadays, who doesn't do crazy numbers with some kind of ramping damage or crits or power mods or a combination of the mix? You know, he's kind of just left behind by the meta. This one I do think is a little tempting, even for me personally, because Archer Artoria, even though I complained about 2 years ago or the upcoming anniversary over here on the NA side of things, that her buff wasn't really what she needed, it's still nice if you have like a highly invested Archer Artoria, because it does give her a battery, which makes it easier to use her in multi-core setups, and she does refund like an absolute crackhead. I mean, if you've ever used Archer Artoria, you know that this girl is looping all over the place. Like, still, I think one of the more iconic single target arts loopers in the game. If you've played during like year 1 and maybe even like early year 2, you know this character is just looping all over the place. The problem is that I think we are still in kind of like that same Tesla vein, in a spot where we just have better single target art servants. If you're going to be prioritizing one to go for, you're better off waiting for somebody like maybe Melusine, who can also double as an AoE Buster servant, or God forbid somebody like Draco or Yusugi Kenshin, who is just on raid up. There are plenty of other single target art servants that kind of do what she does, but just a lot better. But again, it is a Saberface. I understand, you know, I'm a big fan of the Saberfaces myself, so if you would like to get a different flavor of single target art servant, isn't the worst. Unfortunately, Helena being the 4-star, I do think really devalues this banner, unless in the next couple of days, you know, I'm not saying we're not going to get it, maybe Helena gets a buff, you know. I think they did throw out some buffs the other day. Granted, I think it was because of the actual event itself, you know, that we got the Medusa and the Gorgon buffs, but hey, they might chuck out some buffs out there being like, oh, you know what? We realize some of these servants suck doo-doo PP, right? We're going to go ahead and give them some additional buffs over here to make them more valuable. But again, not the worst banner, especially if they do decide to throw Helena something. Now we don't have clairvoyance over the JP side of things, so who knows if they're going to do that. The Ishtar banner, this is a really unfortunate one, because I just did my AoE Buster Archer video like a couple months ago, and I do think Ishtar is really behind on the times. I also want to say her interlude is really annoying. If you didn't know, over here on JP, every single character's interlude is going to be available, so you can do all the missions and like get all the backstory and lore for everybody. And hers is really annoying. You got to bring her, unbuffed Gilgamesh, unbuffed Enkidu, and go beat up Gugalana, who's like an alter ego, which it just takes a long time. It's not hard, it's just really annoying. It just takes a fat minute. But Unless you're a huge fan of Ishtar, there's no reason to summon on this banner. I mean, again, like, Tesla's right around the corner, Gilgamesh is right around the corner on another banner at the same time. There's just really no reason to go for Ishtar. If you need somebody with the 50% battery, Tesla just does it better. If you don't really need the battery because you have like Oberon setups available to you, Gilgamesh is just going to do it better, right? There's really no reason to go on this banner. I mean, Tomoe's cute. She's one of the characters I have grailed over on NA, but even I can admit Tomoe's not really all that great, unless, again, fingers crossed, they decide to toss her a buff. But again, overall, if you're going for like a waifu banner, you got like a Rin and a Tomoe on here. It's not like the worst one in that aspect, but gameplay-wise, not the best. This one is actually kind of interesting because I think this one will probably go over a lot of people's radars because nobody really uses Moriarty, despite the fact that he's really good. Let me remind you that the guy just double buffs everybody for free because he does have the evil charisma, which not only gives 20% to all allies, but if they're evil, they get 20% additional, and he makes all of your allies evil. He gives them that trait. So everybody gets free 40% attack. He has Pierce Invincibility on one of his skills. He can drop stars to turn on his 50% battery skill. So it's kind of like strong single target buster damaging guy, can be used in looping, double buffs everybody for free. Just a really strong servant overall, and not bad if your main target is Fujino, who is also, you know, going to be doing your big archer buster damage, but I guess has the moniker of being a rarer servant, although not as rare anymore. They seem to be throwing her on a lot more banners or making her more available. So again, if you're like, oh my goodness, I've heard this character is like super rare, it's like, she was like super rare when the Kara no Kyokai event came back around and was gone for like 2 or 3 years, I think. But they've since then been putting her on a lot more banners. I don't think that her value as a servant is good enough for this like mythicized rarity that she supposedly has. She's still like not bad, you know, I'm not saying she's a bad servant, but the way that people talk about her, you would think she's like a top 5 servant in the game. She's decent enough as a 4-star option, but you know, realistically, if you go on this banner, even though you'd be going for Fujino, Moriarty's actually the prize. Like, Moriarty's not bad. Unfortunately, again, as much as I personally love Moriarty, I do think he is, again, one of those servants that you just have better free agent options. Single target buster, you know, we are kind of flooded with good dudes that we're able to use for that. But again, he's got a good combination of skills. Really good in multi-core setups or going into boss fights where you need multiple DPSs because he can give you that extra damage. 50% battery is always going to be good. And Pierce Invincibility is not bad. And then finally, there's Napoleon, which I think he also ranked a little bit low on the AoE buster list, and that's just because he's been left behind. They just have not been really giving this guy anything. You know, it can't be helped. I mean, I love Lost Bell 2 as much as the next guy. I thought Napoleon was a super big Giga Chad, but they just won't give him anything. And there's also the combination of they give him a bunch of like one-turn buffs. It's like, dude, you got to go back. You got to give my boy Napoleon some stuff, and then we could talk. And this one I do think is fairly realistic. I do think if they're going to go back and rebuff somebody, it's not going to be like Summer Helena or, you know, the Archer Anne and Mary Reed or whatever. It's gonna be the 5-star servant that has their own cut-in special scene in one of the main story chapters, or at least that's what I would assume. So if we do get a Napoleon buff like tomorrow or something, I believe Wednesdays usually when they might like throw little updates over here on JP, we'll see if they toss him anything. But as it stands right now, really cool guy, not really worth going for when you have people like, again, Gilgamesh and Tesla on raid at the same time. So only reason to go for him is if you specifically are a huge fan of Napoleon. But that is the last banner. We should be getting the next set that will include people like Durga, Super Orion. It'll have like Tamatomo on there. It'll have Tolmaias. Should have King Tut on there as well, which will be really interesting because I just went broke for that servant because I'm pretty much arts locked on my account, and he'd be really good considering that he's like a single target Arash. Didn't get him. Funny enough, back on raid up like 2 days later, you know, functionally like 3 months after he initially came out, which I don't really know how to feel about that one. But let me know in the comment section down below if you're a JP player, if you're going to be summoning on any of these banners. I am personally waiting for the Assassin banner because this is the final class for the 3 that were announced. They announced Sabers, Rulers, and Archers. Now they're probably going to be moving into what, probably like Lancers, Avengers, and then like Riders probably. if we're going in that order, so it probably will be a fat minute for assassins, but I will hold out for getting Koyanskaya of Light, alright? I was able to bag Ruler Scotty in like 2 multis, so I'm feeling like this is the year that I can actually use all of my servants on JP. I mean, you guys have heard me rant and rave about this before, but somehow, no Koyanskaya, no Oberon, but I'm sitting on like NP2 Kukulkan and like NP2 Ace the Savior, and I'm like, I can't use any of these guys. They even tossed me like Kolyan Dark and like all these like Arcoid, like all these really good Buster AoEs, and I'm like, I can't use any of them, man. You gotta give me Kolyan Light, or make another support that does exactly what she does, and make it like a 3-star and just toss her my way, make her a free to play. That'd be much appreciated over here, so I can use my Saint Quartz to go for other characters that I want instead. But yeah, that's a personal rant of mine. But with that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Sorry that I'm still feeling a little raspy and a little sick. I'm hoping to be feeling better in the next couple of days. I've been drinking my juice, getting my sleep, and drinking my water. But with that being said, you guys have yourselves a nice rest of your day, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace, late guys.